Hello and welcome back to Talk Seagulls. It's been a while again, hasn't it? I'm sorry. I say this seemingly all the time now. I've had like 2 uploads in the last 2 months, I think, which is very ropey times. We're back at the Earth and Stars again. There's not a great deal to talk about, Lucas, there, but you know, here we are.
It's been an eventful few weeks, hasn't it?
Just a bit, mate. And weirdly enough, me and Luke actually filmed after a game, but then our Wi-Fi was just that bad that it never went up, and then it is what it is. So we're retaking it again, but unfortunately the circumstances aren't much better, are they?
It was probably for the best because it was before Villa, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I vividly remember you going, I think we're going to beat them 2-3-0. The next day I was thinking about it, watching the game, and I was like, yeah, he's a little bit off.
Yeah, a little bit off. So Luke, obviously, I didn't give you an introduction, sorry. Luke, manager here at Earth and Stars, absolute legend, always gives me a coffee on the way in. You even got us some sausage rolls back there. What a guy.
Yeah, I treat my customers well, that's what it is.
Definitely come to Earth and Stars. I really would recommend the fish and chips, very good stuff.
Recommend the burger as well, and the Sunday roast.
There you go. The plugs are in. But let's talk about Brighton, mate, because, tough couple weeks, as we know. Obviously, the Palace result, the Villa result, and now the Leicester result. Is it fair to say Europe is almost off?
I don't think we can say it's almost off, to be honest, because there's still a little bit of time. It looks like Europe's going to go down to a few more places, hopefully. We're on the same points as Bournemouth and Fulham, I believe, so there is still time. I mean, our run of games isn't incredible, to be honest, considering we've still got Liverpool to play. But hopefully they've won the league by then. They're on the beach and they don't care.
Yeah. They're 2 wins away, if I'm right in saying.
I think they can win it this weekend, actually.
Oh, can they?
I'm pretty sure they can win it this weekend.
There you go.
Yeah, because I think because they won the other day, if Arsenal lose to Ipswich, which
it's not impossible.
I was going to say I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
If Arsenal lose to Ipswich, I'm pretty sure Liverpool can win the league. So hopefully, as I say, they're on the beach and I was going to say care about the Champions League, but they're out of that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. They're not going to care.
Yeah. It's a difficult one for us, isn't it, really? Because obviously Bournemouth won last night. It's quite a nice time to record, actually, because I was thinking if we recorded on the Monday or after the weekend immediately, you lose out on that Bournemouth result and then it gets dated. So I thought I wanted to wait for that one. And although it was a very boring game to watch, to be honest, it was probably the best case scenario in the hunt for Conference League.
Yeah.
Because I think if Fulham were to win, you almost open that gap above you. At least it holds that, so now we're all level on points.
Yeah.
But of course, it does require us actually winning again, which, you have to focus on yourself as much as everybody else. But I think probably last night was probably the right result for us, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's annoying. It would have been nice for a draw, obviously, but I mean, all on the same points. 6 games left to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 games left to go. We got to just sort of keep our fingers crossed at this point because it's not been the greatest few weeks.
No.
But looking forward to Brentford on the weekend, I guess. Just hoping we can at least do something. But
to be fair, Brentford aren't far behind, if I'm right in saying. They're only 4 or 5 points behind us. And
yeah, but they've been either really good or really crap this season. I've noticed, well, it's been us.
And I think when you look at Palace as well, I mean, obviously they had that defeat to City, luckily, because considering they were 2-0 up at the weekend. That was
3-0 up as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And, they were pushing, to be honest. They were in a bit of form. They obviously beat us not long ago. So, less said about that, the better. Yeah. But again, it's another club that's below us that, you don't want to open it up too much. You want to keep that gap as much as you can from below you. And I think there's not many better opportunities than when you actually have to play that team, that is below you.
It's going to be a difficult one. Last season, I'm not going this weekend, but I went last season. And it's probably one of the most boring games I've ever watched in my life. Nearly as bad as the Forest game a couple of weeks ago. But I don't know. As I say, they go 1 or 2 ways, but then we also go 1 or 2 ways, as you've said. I'm sort of hoping we can get I feel like it will be a bit of a scrappy game, to be honest. I feel like it will be either a 1-0 or like a 2-1 or something like that. But it's going to go either way. I don't think it's going to be a draw or anything.
No, I get what you're saying. I think to focus it back on the last game just gone, because obviously the Leicester result doesn't look good. And I think it could have looked a bit worse in that last 5-10 minutes. Leicester really turned it on, to be honest. I was quite surprised of how well they were playing. They were completely overloading us in numbers. And I think El Khanous and Mavrididi were having an absolute field day between the two of them. I thought that especially Mavrididi was really, really good to watch. El Khanous' final delivery was actually really good as well. And I was thinking, my God, like these guys are relegation. Like, they are going down. There's no two ways about it. They're going down. They're back to the Championship. And they're playing very well. We're allowing them a lot of space in that second half and even in periods of the first half. And it was a bit of a question mark to me. And this is what I wanted to pose to you, because I've seen a lot of talk on social media, and like I always like to use this platform as the way of my actual conversation about Brighton. I feel like the Twitter thing is the Twitter thing. Like, you have to sometimes over-exaggerate a little bit to get a few more numbers on there, and that's whatever. But I feel like this is the thing you can have a proper conversation with. If anyone really wants to know what Ryan thinks about football, don't look at my Twitter, watch the video, right? But the conversation on Twitter is, for me anyway, what do you think is actually going wrong in terms of... We'll forget the Palace result for the argument's sake, and we'll look at Leicester, because there's obviously we draw with them twice now, both against Van Nistelrooy, who's arguably not a Premier League manager even, right? In the amount of times he's fallen out with his players, and they've played pretty well. We've allowed them back into the game. Our confidence looked on the floor at times. A lot of players, apart from maybe Belabor, didn't really look anywhere near the levels. Lewis Dunk was unfortunately nowhere near the levels either. And it just looked like we had a lack of confidence, maybe. Do you put it mentality, or do you put it tactically, or where do you identify the biggest issues?
I feel like a lot of players didn't really look like they were up for it. It was the same with Palace. They just didn't look like they were up for it. Belieber, as always, he's always up for it. I really don't think, and people got to shoot me for this, I don't think Hertzler got it right. I know Cashin didn't really have the greatest of debuts, but I don't see why he's not playing in centre-back and Belabor isn't playing a bit further up the field. I think he got some of the substitutions wrong, like O'Reilly coming off I don't think was right, because I thought he had a really good game, was putting a lot of really good passes through, was just sort of controlling the midfield, both him and Ayori were. And it seemed to be the moment that changed, we decided to sit back and we let him come on to us, which I don't think it was obviously not just O'Reilly and obviously just that change. But I feel like also taking Minter off instead of Adingra I thought was wrong.
Minter was not happy about that, by the way. I don't know if you saw him on the touchline, but he was fuming. He came off, he completely ignored Hertzler. I think he kicked the bottles everywhere, he's hitting the chairs. He was not a happy man.
I'm not surprised. Adingra was... I feel like when he's come on and played like recently, he's been better than what he was playing like earlier in the season, because I think earlier in the season he wasn't that great. But the other day, I don't think he was really worth keeping on the pitch.
I agree. He had a lot of chances first half as well, didn't he? To score and didn't.
But Minter's just got... It's like when we have Matoma on, I feel like no matter what sort of game Matoma's having, you can't really take him off. I feel like because he can change the game like that. The difference is with Minter, his pace is ridiculous, and we never have someone pushing forward or getting forward. The only person who seems to bring it forward really is Belabor, really just driving through the heart of the midfield. But if we're on like the counter and we've got, say, Pedro going up as well, we need Minter running down the wing, bringing it forward, and we just didn't have that for the last however long of the game, like 20, 25 minutes of I think it was something like that. But I feel like that's where we sort of went wrong. O'Reilly and Minter coming off just seemed like we just didn't know what we were doing, couldn't get up the pitch or anything, and just let them run at us, which is pretty embarrassing considering they hadn't scored in 14 hours and we let them score twice. So, that was great.
I think it was like 791 minutes, which, as you say, is roughly that. And that's insane, right? I mean, I don't even know how many games a football day is. 6, 7 games? 8 games? 9 games?
It was 9, yeah.
Crazy.
There is a silver lining to it all. If they got to, I think it's around about the 80th minute, they would have beaten the record for the longest time to go without scoring. And if I remember rightly, the team that's got the record for that is Crystal Palace. So,
well,
so it's all right.
At least we get one back on them after the other week. But they've actually done a double over us as well, haven't they, to be fair?
Yeah, you got to take the good with the bad, though. Come on.
But I get what you're saying. So, I think the substitutions were weird. I think I didn't like... we'll touch on the Belabor thing to begin with, because yeah, you're almost sacrificing your best midfielder, really. And I think it's difficult when you're playing against a team like Leicester, and I don't want to look down on Leicester because I know that not long ago we were there. I know not to say we couldn't be there again, right? But when you're playing against the side at the bottom of the league that is all but relegated, the last thing you need to do is start to go conservative and put too many players behind the ball, particularly when you're sacrificing one of your most talented players on the whole pitch, right? I thought, and I agree with you, putting Cash in at centre-back, realistically, what would be the worst that could have happened in that scenario? You could see what Baleba tried to do all game. He was just trying to go forward. Every time he did, and actually played quite a few passes forward, especially to Purvis, and they worked and they were really good.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't think we did. I know that the XG was quite flattering, but I don't think it was a true reflection really of the amount of domination and chances and stuff like that. I thought first half had a lot of chances, yes. Matt O'Reilly could have scored at least 2, and Odingra could have scored at least 2. But I think the majority of the XG came from Pedro's penalties.
Yeah.
In fact, I think about 2 XG of this 4 was Pedro's penalties.
Yeah.
Almost. So from that alone, I thought, okay, if you discount penalties, because, whatever people want to think about penalties, whatever, the other 2 expected goals that was there was Odingra's 2 chances and Matt O'Reilly hitting the post and Minte just wide. And I don't think Minte's actually counted for too much in the end because of the nature of where the ball actually ended up. But I think the biggest ones was Odingra's. And the point is, for me anyway, if you were then to, say, put Cash in centre-back, right, and you put Baleba back in midfield, I think you've got players like Weaver, even Ayari, O'Reilly, Diego Gomez. We've got so many players that we could potentially overload and overpower that midfield at Leicester. I reckon, honestly, you could have gone even more crazy and gone for a back 3.
Yeah.
And just use Dunk, Estepinian, and even use Cashin or something like that. Go a little bit more rogue and then put another man in midfield and overload them again. Because I thought for the risk and reward factor of it, I didn't see too much potential threat before the game. Whereas it ended up actually being, because we were letting them have more joy, the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah. It was... You talk about like the first half and like domination, not really seeing it. I feel like we were definitely controlling the midfield.
We're definitely better than them.
We were definitely better than them. I feel like the only real luck they were getting, or sort of any sort of joy they were getting, was down their wings. Like you've obviously touched on it with Elkanous and Mavididi. Yeah. I thought Mavididi was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he was class.
We had a really, really good game. I feel like surely he's not going to stay there when they go down, because they're not staying up.
No.
Elkanous, I thought he was sort of but Mavididi was really, really good, and he seemed to be their only sort of attacking outlet. As I say, we were controlling the midfield for most of it. I don't know why we didn't just, as you say, play a back 3 and do that.
That's what I mean. There's a risk and reward, right?
Yeah.
And if you remember, so many times Brighton were high risk, high reward. That's what we like to pride ourselves on. Whereas it feels now like we've almost maybe lost that a touch. We're not so high risk, high reward. We're more, let's just hope and see out a steady ship, which can work sometimes, and it can also hit you back, as we saw in that game. I feel like we've maybe lost that style, and we've lost that freedom, perhaps. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't help when you've got so many injuries. I think Mitoma and Jorginho are huge misses.
Yeah.
And actually 2 of those players there are now linked with potential moves away in the summer. If you read the news this morning, you would never guess who would be interested in Jorginho. Can't even be bothered to give them the light of day and say their stupid name. Think for yourselves for once, you clowns. And the other one's being Mitoma. And Mitoma was probably the surprising but not surprising one, in the sense of, he's always said he wants to play in Europe, and he deserves to, because he's a great player. And unfortunately, if we don't get that, as Andy Naylor says in his article, that becomes less and less likely that he stays if we don't. And what scenario is that if you start losing these great players? I've said on the podcast this season so many times, the great squad we got, if you don't get into Europe, or you don't fulfill potentially what the season could be, unfortunately, you do then risk them leaving in the summer for a bigger move.
Yeah. I mean, we have these young players that are obviously coming through, or we've bought, such as like Gruder. And I think Gruder's been quite good, like, recently. but he's no Matoma, is he? Like, who would we get in instead of him? I mean, I wouldn't mind Mavididi, to be honest, but again, he's not.
Well, we got Tommy Watson, from Sunderland. That's already over the line, and that's the first time I've actually said his name on camera. Actually, so we got Tommy Watson for 10 million. Which is by the looks of it a good signing. He gives me very Tyler Dibbling vibes in his profile. He's quite tall for a winger, which is quite interesting. So whether we've tried to identify that Dibbling profile perhaps as a, maybe we could have got Dibbling a couple of years ago before we broke out to the Southampton team. And then you've got a player like Watson, this interesting one. But again, he's not going to be Mitoma next season. He might be Mitoma in 3 or 4 years, but you're asking a lot of him, aren't you?
We really need. I mean, I feel like losing Mitoma, it wouldn't be like the end of the world. We do have people, but like, if we want to get into Europe next year, so we don't get into Europe this year, I feel like we need Mitoma for that. Like,
and Joao Pedro's another one that is inevitably going to get linked.
Yep.
Because of the amount of goals he scores, the important goals he scores, and whether or not he's consistent is up for debate. But I think regardless, when you've got a player of that quality and sort of his mentality and ego and nature that he is, he attracts big clubs, and that's what big clubs want. I could easily see him at an Arsenal or Liverpool comfortably. That number 9 spot's there for grabs, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we went to like Liverpool or something. Arsenal do need a striker because, I mean, they're Arsenal, but I don't know. I can't see them going to Arsenal, to be honest. But
the point is though that there's big clubs now that will be looking at these players, and
of course.
you need to get Europe to stop that from happening. Is my point. And I know people will say, well, Ryan, you don't need Europe to persuade players. I personally just don't agree. I think if you're a club of our stature, the thing that keeps you here is based on what the club's progression is, right? And if the last season was the learning curve, right? Do you remember it was the one that was, we didn't reinvest back into the squad enough, so we put it into this summer. And it was going to be this season was the one where we kicked on. Then the narrative after Christmas changed again. Do you remember? So this is the thing. I try and remember everything so that people can't just pick and choose what they do. That's what it was going into this season. It was we've spent the money. Then after Christmas, it's then changed again to, well, actually, they're all young players, and actually, maybe we need them to settle. Okay, that's completely fine, right? I completely can accept all of them are new players and young players that have come over from different places and need to settle and gel. Absolutely fine. But then you've changed that. The goalposts have moved from last season. So then you're then putting a new emphasis on next season. Okay, interesting. But then maybe for players like Joao Pedro, for Mitoma, they're not getting any younger in these years. And they're thinking, okay, well, especially for Mitoma's sake, is what going to be 28 next season.
28, 29, something like that, yeah.
And he's thinking he's in his prime. He can't wait for another year thinking, well, Brighton could be back in Europe. He's going to be thinking, well, no, I want to play in Europe next season.
Yeah.
That's what kept him here last year. And that's... as boring as it sounds, I get it. You're a fan. You don't want to think of it like that. But unfortunately, that is just how the clubs will think of it. That's how the players will think of it.
This is the thing. Like this season, as you say, last season, the learning curve. This season was a season we were going to kick on and get back into Europe. So for these players that might have been linked with a move away, such as like Mitoma in January, and like we've kept him, signed a new contract and all this. He's like we need to get Europe to keep those people here because that's what they're expecting. And that's what we've all been told. We spent £200 million this summer. Like, it is the expectation at this point. If it was a few years ago, it'd be a completely different story, such as like say it was like the COVID season.
Yeah.
And we had all these players, but we hadn't got into Europe yet. It'd be a completely different story.
Yeah.
Like, the expectation now, after £200 million spent, is we kick on, we get back into Europe. And it sounds stupid saying it, like as a Brighton fan with our history, but that is sort of, well, in my eyes, that's how I feel after us spending all that money. It was like a statement of intent. Like, we're spending this money because we're gonna be competitive in Europe. We have this season where we get in, we have all the players gel, and then the season after we're back in Europe, and then we kick on, and everyone fits together, and everyone's, as I say, gel together. I was literally having a conversation with a guy in the pub after the Leicester game. I'll be honest, he was quite drunk, but he was probably in his 50s, 60s, and he was saying the exact same thing as me. he was like, "Oh, I don't care about what these people say on Facebook and all these keyboard warriors saying, oh, you're wet in the bed and all this sort of stuff." He was just like, at this point, we expect it. And he's like, I expect it. After how we were the first half of the season, the money we've spent, the players we've brought in, the players we already have, we should be expecting to get Europe, especially with more places, going down to more places now as well. I know it's really competitive for Europe this season with, like, say, Bournemouth, Fulham, like obviously Newcastle, they were sort of average for a bit and now they've just gone ridiculous again. Villa, it's more competitive than ever, but with again, how much money we've spent and the players we have, I feel like, well, we should be getting it, to be honest. It should be like, not the least of our expectations, but it should be a very valid expectation.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think it's unreasonable. And as you say, it's you spoke about it to someone that's in that older category. I wouldn't say old category, but the older generation, the next generation of. And I think it's the same with people that I speak to in the same generation. And I think particularly on like Twitter and Brighton social media, everyone does just jump to the other extreme. If you say something, they think, hang on a minute, remember where we came from? Or they'll think, oh, well, you can't expect it because it'll be a whole different host of reasons and it always changes every single time. And it's a shame because I think Dogma made a good piece on it this week. And to be fair, they were quite right in saying, as a collective fan base, we probably don't, and we're not quite ready to accept that we're not the old Brighton anymore. And when we bring up that conversation, it makes everybody a bit scared. And you're like, oh, just calm down. Just calm down. This is not what... But until everyone just says, no, we are better than that now. We're not just a newly promoted championship club. Like we got to Europe with less. We could have been much better this season. You see clubs like Forest, I know they've got a ridiculous transfer budget, but the way they've done it is unconventional and they've done it their own way.
Yeah.
They might not get Champions League now. They've had a little hiccup, but regardless, it's an unbelievable season and Nuno's done a great job and whatever. I feel like if they can then start to expect it from... I highly doubt many Forest fans, even if they get Europa League this year, will look at next season and the season afterwards and go, happy with mid-table, happy if we finish in 10th, happy if we don't get it. Remember we were in the Championship a few years ago. They won't be saying that. So I don't know why we do. And I get you got the Goldston thing and you've got the Hereford thing, but it's changed now.
It's 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Brighton in the last 5 years is a different Brighton to what it was when we were younger watching in the Championship.
This is the thing, right? It's literally just come into my head. 30 years ago, that was happening. Look at where Man City were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, look at where Man City were 30 years ago. And people were saying, and like their fans are saying, they're disappointed in their season. Of course they are, because they expect to be the best at this point.
Yeah.
Because they spent all this money, they have this ridiculous team, they've won the league 4 years in a row anyway. Like, they expect it. But again, look at where they were like 30 years ago. They were crap. Like, well, they weren't crap, but they weren't Man City.
No.
Like, so I don't get what the difference is with us. We spent all this money. Like, even 3 years ago, we weren't the same team. Like, we weren't the same team. And I feel like we're better than we were then as well. So why? Like, I don't get why people have this sort of narrative of thinking, oh, we shouldn't be like thinking, oh, we can get Europe, we can get all this, we can win the FA Cup.
I like to think of it as continuous improvement. And I look back on from probably the COVID year onwards, and the one I'm talking 1920 season, when Potter first come in. And I like to think of it as Potter did a superb job of transitioning the club through the next stage, right? Everything changed, recruitment strategy changed, business structure changed, new way of running the football club changed, right? All the recruitment was completely different and much better as it is now, right? And Graham Potter was a really good head coach at that. He helped us through being that pretty embarrassing relegation for the side to competing potentially for mid-table and, potentially beyond. You could see the style of play that Potter played was at times beautiful to watch, right? And we can't recreate history, right? You've got to remember what it was, and it was beautiful to watch. Once he left and De Zerbi came, and that's fast forward a couple of years. Bear in mind, in that time we finished, 16th, was it? in the first season, which arguably could have been in the top 4, but for a little bit more luck. And the season after we finished 9th, if I'm right in saying, and then he left while we were 4th.
Yeah.
And we were, always going to get Europe that season. I think the growth year on year was great to watch. And then at that point, De Zerbi took us to 6th. And it was the season before that where we lost Cucurella, where we lost etc. And we started losing big players, Trossard. We thought, okay, we need to be able to do that, make the money, but then replenish. Then you have your season under De Zerbi last season, where people, again, the false memories start creeping in a little bit. Remember how bad we were at the end of the De Zerbi season? Heard that a lot this year. Let's remember the team we had last season as well. Let's remember the starting 11 we finished on at Bournemouth away last year with Amani, Afaya. Not to discredit any of them. Barco as a very young, raw teenager. The squad was not ready to be competing at that level.
Yeah.
The midfield double pivot with Gilmore, etc. was not Caicedo, McAllister, etc. Right? You lose them players, fine. You move on to this season, and that's where we are now. Okay, the one thing I would address on the club's sake and the club's fault, I guess you would say, is you're continuously moving the bar higher and higher and higher, right? With that becomes new expectation, becomes fans always wanting to see more. And also with that, maybe the defence, okay, you would say, hasn't progressed as fast as the rest of the squad has, and it isn't balanced. Correct to say. But I still think year after year after year after year, and where we are now, this season has been a regression on last, I would say.
Yeah,
based on what we've got as well at our disposal.
Definitely, I think. If again, going back to the fact we spent £200 million on players and we don't look as good. There are times when we look very, very good, and we've already touched on it.
Yeah.
There's times where we look really, really good. I mean, against Southampton are crap. But, they're really crap. But when we played them away, last month, we looked ridiculous. The passing was ridiculous. Yeah. And again, they're not great, but
that's what you expect to see.
Really
you go
good.
to Southampton, the 9-point side, right?
Yeah.
Bottom of the league, and you want to go there and just go, look, we are better than you, and we're going to show it. Nigel Aikens keeping up with you, right? Yes, my friend. But that's it. You've wiped the floor with Southampton. So why then we play Leicester, and the mentality is just complete polar opposite. Even if you have got Matoma and Georgie out, the side out there is good enough, more than good enough, to beat that Leicester side on paper, by far. Even with Mavididi starting or not, right? We shouldn't be having too much problem. Okay, you could say Jack Hinchwood is not a right back, and he's not. Okay, I can accept that Veltman, we miss him a lot, and Hinch shouldn't be playing there. It's fair enough, right?
Yeah,
but even still. Right, I think we've got a more than good enough squad. And this is where my frustrations come in. Either we've been scammed for UEFA, right? And PSV, not PSV, was it PSV?
No.
Feyenoord, sorry. I get two clubs mixed up every time. It is Feyenoord.
Yeah, no, it's Feyenoord, yeah.
I always do it. PSV, Eindhoven, same club, really. We're the same colours.
One's in Eindhoven, one's in Rotterdam, so not quite, but still.
Still the same place. But my point stands. Either we've been completely scammed, right? And fair enough, maybe we have. Yeah. Maybe we have been scammed. Maybe the data's lied to us because Arne Slot was just superb there. Or maybe we're just not profiling these players correctly. Maybe we should be, even if you're going to drop Baleba into centre-back, put Weaver in holding midfield. Why have we then got no ball winners in midfield and then get surprised when we get beaten on transition?
I was thinking that as well. I was like, if you're not going to play Believer there, why have you not got a holding midfielder in?
Yeah.
And V3 was a bit shaky when he played the first couple of months, which is fair enough. But I genuinely think anytime he's played in the past few months, he's been really, really good. He's
been fine.
He's been genuinely very good. And he's played in Hinch's spot.
Yeah.
Right. Which, let's not say it's fullback because Hinch isn't fullback.
Yeah.
But neither's Vifa. But Vifa's always come in and actually I think he's done quite well. I believe he came on against Palace because I'm pretty sure I remember him coming on and actually looking okay. Yeah, but I might be wrong.
Okay, do you know what? Let's mention Palace. Not the whole game, but the ending. They've just gone down to 9 men. We're at our rival spot at Selhurst Park, right? I'm not going to talk about why I wasn't at that stupid game because that's ridiculous. By the way, seriously.
Yeah, we've already talked about it.
Yeah, we've talked about it off there. But that last 12 minutes of that game. You've got plus 12 minutes, 9 men. How on earth have we ended that game in a worse off position than we were when that added ball went up. Because that to me is just it's the game management, it's the naivety, it's the inexperience, but it's also just that little bit of, I don't know how to explain it. It's a bit of special something that we do, that click, that spark.
Yeah,
it's just not there for me. It doesn't click. Something, whatever it is, that feeling for me when they go down to 9, you think, kill them, get them now. You know they're down. Why couldn't we do that? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no,
because the same happens with Leicester again. The same happens with Villa. Villa was an unfortunate way where they went in front because it was maybe a little bit against the run. I wouldn't say we were exactly like going to score in that game, but I think the time where it came, Yari just hit the post, I think, before half time.
Yeah.
We come out for the second half, ball over the top, Rashford's through, heads go down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's from that point, it was only ever going one way, and it was to Villa. And I didn't really think, yeah, okay, we're going to stop this from happening. We just looked like we almost go into our shells.
It was at Palace, like you say, oh, what happened? But it's sort of like a rhetorical question. Like, you can't even really answer it, to be honest. It's just, I don't know. To be honest, most of the game against Palace, no one really looked up for it. And that was, I mean, no one looked up for it in the home game as well, which is ridiculous. Like, I couldn't care less if we went down, but we did the double against Palace, right? Like, we go down, but we've done a double against Palace, so that's fine. I'd be like, I mean, I'm not happy that we've gone down, obviously, but I'd be like, oh, we can take something from it because we've done the double against Palace and we've beaten them. And the game we actually really, really care about, no one's like heads have dropped. No, the confidence was there, right? But the 2 games we played against Palace this season have been like really, really bad. Like that last 12 minutes, the whole time Solly was on, I think it was from about the 85th, maybe before that. Whole time Solly was on, there's so many times where he was open down the wing and they always tried to go down a Dingra's wing, right? And any time they passed to Solly, it was too late. It was either too late or it was a misplaced pass and Chilwell would come and intercept him.
Yeah.
Like, Chilwell played well when he came on, but mainly for the sheer fact that no one would pass to Solly. The amount of times I saw him like screaming for the ball or throwing his arms about because people just weren't passing to him. And normally I don't like that, but it was completely fair enough because no one was getting the ball out to him quick enough. Kept going down a Dingra's wing, but then most of the time it was too late anyway. Like we get a chance to, like, say Verbruggen throw the ball out and he just didn't do it. And that was the exact same against Leicester as well. We needed a goal to win, needed a goal to draw obviously against Palace, and we just didn't seem like we wanted it at all. It seems like we were especially against Leicester, it seems like we were the ones who hadn't scored in 14 hours or whatever it was.
Exactly. It's either the players have given up on the season or something crazy, or I've gone crazy because I feel like people have said on like Twitter, like big accounts have told me on Twitter, and I won't say names because I'm fair, but telling me that I've been negative and the negativity is not helping, right? Can accept that. I can accept that completely if I was actually being negative about a scenario that's not happening. Yeah. Because I think if you watch any of the videos that I've ever done for Brighton over the last 10, 15 years, I've been doing Talk Seagull since I was 12. Yeah. And any of posts I've ever put out on Twitter or any content I've ever done for Sky, you name it, right? And I've gone on there and actually been negative and actively brought the club down. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that the conversation we're having at the moment is a very different one to what was happening last season, but that's because there was a reasonable reason as to why we didn't have to be negative. Yeah. Because you could see that in the summer, okay, we're going to spend. Okay, De Zerbi's going to go. Hurtzler come in. I said that's exactly what I wanted to happen. Not because I wanted necessarily Hurtzler to come in, but because we went for the rogue option, because we went for a different option, and because we didn't just follow the Steve Cooper boat, or we didn't just follow whoever it was going to be at the time, you know? So I thought, okay, trust the club, see what happens. But when it's gone the way it has done, and the stats back all of everything that we've said on this podcast up, I think it's quite reasonable to suggest maybe we shouldn't be too happy about this season. What's wrong with saying that, you know? I think that's the trouble.
The thing is, like, I think Hurtzler's done, like, we've had a lot of injuries, as we say, and I feel like he's done. Like, I can't say he's done a bad job because of where we are, but it is that case of game management. Like, I don't think he's done that right. And no one come at me for that. I'm just saying.
But this is the thing, but you shouldn't have to say that, because this is what annoys me about Twitter and social media and just our fan base at the moment. For some reason, if someone says something quite factual and how it is, we like to bring each other down. We almost like to play the blame game on everybody, apart from actually who's responsible.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to almost blame our own fans for stuff that realistically we're just pointing out what's happening. And I don't think, based on anything, and actually there was someone that said about our expected goals or something, and I think it was a game where I said we didn't really look like scoring in that game, or especially in that second half. They said, what are you talking about? Oh, you're talking rubbish, you're spreading rubbish or whatever. And I brought up the expected goals. And I said, we didn't create anything in that second half. And he was like, no response. I just thought, because this is what it's all become now. Like, everyone just has to be all at each other all the time.
Yeah.
When actually, realistically, we've been quite a respectful conversation. And I think you're quite right. This season has been a bit frustrating. But at the same time, it's not over yet.
Yeah.
We've still got 6 games left. There's still chance for this to be turned around. Brentford's a massive game, right? Because I think if we do lose that, then quite rightly, we're going to be quite upset.
Yeah.
But we can't, right? We've got to go win that game, Luke, mate. I'm telling you. We have to go win that game. I told you in the episode last time, we would beat Villa 2-0. We lost 3-0, right? Since then, we've lost to Palace and we drew to Leicester. So I'm telling you now, we're going to go to Brentford and we're going to go win. Because regardless of whether I believe it or not, you've got to be a little bit delusional every now and then.
Yeah.
And otherwise, how else are we going to turn it all around?
Oh, God, that's on camera. Oh, no.
But yeah, that's who have we got after? It's someone at home, isn't it, after Brentford? It's
West Ham.
West Ham. Again.
And Potter's coming back.
Potter's coming back.
Hopefully fans are up for that. I know obviously it's not Chelsea or anything, but hopefully fans are up for it. I feel like the atmosphere against Leicester was just so flat.
Yeah.
And I know it's not like... I know it's not like we're playing, say, like Fulham, because I think Fulham, the atmosphere was pretty good. But I know it's not Fulham or anything, but people just need to get up for it, especially at this time of the season. Just no one seems to be up for it. Even at times, like, I didn't even really feel all that up for it.
To be fair, you only really get up for it like if something's happening. You're actually up for it. Like when something's actually to cheer about. Like the amount of times when Mitoma would get on the ball in the European season, for example, everyone would be excited because you think, oh God, what's he going to do now?
Yeah.
But you remember when we got promoted in the knockout, when he got on the ball, there was a buzz around everybody because you thought, here we go, something's going to happen. Even if you didn't actually know what was going to happen, it was an excitement feeling.
I feel like that with Ritera as well.
Yeah, when he would get on the ball, you would think, okay, where's he going? What's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And that's what you want. You want a buzz. You want a spark. And something to make you go, let's get excited. And that's what I want. I want to be excited. I don't want to sit here having a bad conversation about it, but it is how it is, isn't it?
I don't think it's a bad conversation. It's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah.
You can't excuse the fact that we've drawn against Ipswich. Obviously, we beat Ipswich away. Great game. That was a brilliant game, by the way. We drew against Ipswich, we drew against Southampton, we've drawn against Leicester twice. And we've got West Ham in a couple of weeks. That's a big game because obviously they're not amazing. So I feel like the next couple of weeks are going to be quite telling on how the rest of the season is going to go.
Yeah.
I think we've got Brentford, West Ham, and then we've got Wolves. And I think that's the next 3 games.
So here's what I'll do. For the end of this video now, I'll put some blind faith in. Right, I'll say exactly what I want to say, if I could. I want to see everything turn around. I want a reason to believe in this and a reason to say, yes, we're going to get to Europe. And Fabian Hertzley, you're going to prove me completely wrong. And you're going to rip up this script of this podcast, as if there was a script anyway. Yeah. You're going to rip up this conversation and you're going to just turn it all around. And at the end of this season, we're going to see a completely different Brighton. We're going to see real passions play. We're going to see the best players on this football pitch playing to the best of their abilities. And we're going to get to Europe because we're going to win the next 3 games in a row. That's what's going to happen, right?
I mean, I'm hoping so.
There you go.
I'm too pessimistic for it, but I'll live vicariously through Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, I am hoping more than anything. We've got like all these games. I said earlier, it's actually like it's a bit of a hard run of games, but I don't really think it's too difficult, to be fair.
I think a couple of wins and the confidence changes, doesn't it?
I feel like if we win against Brentford, because the head's just dropped ever since that quarter-final, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, confidence has not been there. if we can win against Brentford, I think the confidence is coming back. And we got Van Hecker back in, and I feel like with Dunk not being like Lewis Dunk this season, Van Hecker stepped into that role pretty well.
Yeah.
And I said it before to my dad, my brother. If Van Hecker stays, I feel like he'll end up being captain. He'll end up captaining the club, but he needs to stay first.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've got like a bit more of a lead. We got more leaders on the pitch. Confidence will go up. We need to win that game against Brentford, and then we've got Wolves, West Ham, Liverpool, Spurs. I mean, Spurs last day of the season seems like an easy 4-0. That's easy. Liverpool, Liverpool. I don't know how that's going to go. But the next 3 games we've got, I'll be confident. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll pretend to be confident.
I agree. And the final thing for me is put some respect on that man's name up there, Lewis Dunk, because I've seen some horrible messages towards Lewis over the last few days. And whilst yes, I agree, he's been pretty bad. And his own admission, you'll say he's been bad, right? I don't think that's unfair. But this guy is a modern legend. He deserves a statue as much as anyone else, right, in this football club. He's one of the most influential, one of the greatest footballers we've ever watched at this football club, ever. Right? Put some respect in his name. I don't want to hear any Lewis Dunk slander on social media anymore. He is a legend. And yes, okay, maybe even if this season is his last season of playing every single week, Lewis Dunk is one of the greatest players in Brighton recent history. And that's that. Agree?
I agree. I'm also a bit scared. But
he's our captain for a reason. Lewis, I hope you've heard that, my friend.
He had proper crazy eyes when he was saying that, I tell you.
But anyway, that's been that. Luke, thank you very much for joining me, mate.
It's all right, mate.
It was a very good conversation, I thought.
It's very different to our last one.
Yeah, we're really buzzing and ready for those last games, but unfortunately it's what it is. But I still have the faith. Still got to keep the faith, as always, and always back whoever's on that football pitch, whether it's, going well or not. But, mate, you've been an absolute pleasure. Make sure you come to Earth and Stars with Course here in Brighton. North Lane's just about... it's next to, I'm not going to say Hope and Ruin, because actually when I do that, I'm plugging a competitor. So in fact, I'm going to say, it's called, what's that place called? The Used Camera Specialists. It's next to that.
Clock Tower Cameras is what it is. Yeah, that's it.
It's next to that, and that's all I'm going to give you. The rest of it you can look on Apple Maps or Google Maps or something. But until that, I'll see you next time on the next one. Hopefully we're back to winning ways at Brentford. And the trip to London, hopefully it's a little bit sweeter than recent times. Thank you for putting up with this for the last hour or so. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much and goodbye.